With everything that has happened in the last few days, us reviewing the much anticipated movies, doing a post-mortem of sorts for both the films, I finally decided that I have to tell you about the slate of films which will decide my mental health this year. I know hope is a dangerous thing, and possibly many of these films that I will list will, just like many of the movies we hyped up this year, will disappoint all of us. However, I would like to still be optimistic and hopeful that in the latter half of 2025, Indian cinema can still spring up some surprises. Through this video, I want to tell you about the movies I am most intrigued or excited about. You have to tell me in the comments below the movies in the latter half of 2025 that you believe will either deliver as promised compared to their marketing material or will surprise us out of nowhere. I would love to see if the picks feature on the list. So here is Tried&Refused Productions with 15 upcoming Indian movies that are my only hope in 2025. Alpha. What is the definition of insanity, Jamie? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And you may think that merely mentioning this movie is crazy talk, and while the results of this weekend will corroborate on the same, that most people should move on from the spy universe and the future remains bleak. But the only reason why I mention this film is because it attempts to do something different than most spy-verse films. It is aiming towards providing us an action film with leading ladies like Alia Bhatt and Sharvari Wagh. It is being directed by Shiv Ravel, a creator who impressed as a director with his web series The Railwayman, and the only hope that I have with this movie is that it has a more realistic and grounded approach with its action and has a unique template, away from what we have already seen with the green screen worlds of the spy universe. This is truly a choice where a person like me is naive and hopeful. I am aware of that, but the little sliver of optimism is what's getting me through life too. So I'll keep it that way. KALAMKAVAL. This is a movie that intrigued me from the first look of Mammootty that I saw. You know, it is absolutely a wild ride at the movies when Mammootty ventures into the dark side. Most popularly with movies like Vidayan and most recently with ventures like Podu and Brahmayugam. The poster presents Mammootty smiling at the camera while being at the center of a spider web. The film may possibly take the route of an intense and dark action thriller, and it has piqued my interest so much because there has a lot been said about Mammootty's absence in the last few months, and his last venture this year, Bazooka, truly was one of the most underwhelming projects I had seen of him lately. So I'm just happy to see him back. More importantly, to see him back in an evil side, and he looks in crazy form in this film. 120 Bahadur. This is a movie that looks more than just a generic movie based on our armed forces. In an era where trailers are inundated with triggering a reaction through dialogues aimed at going viral on social media, this venture truly seems like an attempt to celebrate not only Major Shaitan Singh, but the 120 soldiers from the Ahir community who engaged in the Battle of Rezangla. What stuck with me especially was the visual palette of this movie and what it attempts to capture in regards to the style of combat that may have taken place. A chapter of our history that is barely known, and it is tough to process when you analyze how the odds were against the 120 Indian soldiers. This is a huge responsibility for a director like Rajneesh Ghai, who missed the mark completely with his directorial venture Dhakad, and one can hope that through the guidance of an Excel Entertainment, one has been more mindful of having a more effective and laser-focused screenplay to this feature film. Loca. This is an interesting project that I support simply based on the makers' audacious attempt at providing us an interesting and unique superhero film. This Malayalam movie, directed by Dominic Arun, features Kalyani Priyadarshan and Naslin in lead roles and is being produced by Dulquer Salmaan. From the teaser, the first thing that stuck with me was the cinematography by Nimesh Ravi, providing a beautiful scale to the film yet being extremely contemporary in its visual palette. The set design and operatic score by Jakes Bijoy further heightened my curiosity. I have a feeling that the movie explores the concept of rebirth and the origin story of a hero in the modern day. I just hope it doesn't venture into unnecessary commercial tropes and really goes full throttle with its dramatic themes. This is a wild swing that I want to fully back if it hits it out of the park, because you don't see producers taking such risks often. Tere Ishq Mein. I mean, if Sayyara proves anything, it is that romance is alive and kicking amongst the audience. All they want is a bit of conviction in the storytelling and most importantly, great music. Anand L. Rai, after Atrangi Re and Raksha Bandhan, is going back to what looks like the abandon with which he made Ranjana. The love that's dramatic, messy, and something that has a sense of longing. Something that people equate to the best romantic dramas. It's an interesting creative decision to have Dhanush and Kriti Sanon paired opposite each other, and while the promo material has both the characters be full of rage and melancholy, it has definitely made me wonder what the story may be about. Because in one look, Dhanush is this bearded madman. In contrast, in some of the on-set photos, he seems to be in the armed forces. Honestly, I'm a sucker for good romance, so I hope Anand L. Rai is on his A game with this one. Vash Level 2. This is a movie that is going to come next week and I'm terribly excited for, because if I were to do a comparative analysis of Shaitan and the original movie Vash, the Gujarati movie was far more brutal and unapologetic regarding the darkness it explored, especially in the latter half of the film. In the case of the sequel, which I feel like the Hindi filmmakers are just waiting for it to release so that they can rip it off, it feels like the power of Vashikaran goes absolutely unhinged in this chapter, with an army of young girls coming under the spell of Pratap and wreaking havoc publicly until he is found. How Arya and her father are dealing with the events that have happened in the first film and how do they navigate these indescribable turn of events is going to be so much fun to watch on the big screen. Nishanchi. If there are comebacks that I root for, Anurag Kashyap definitely is up there on the list, making me wish he finds his groove and his creative voice again. While I love his insight on cinema in interviews and I empathize with the in-limbo films he has which are just not seeming to find a release date, I was ecstatic to see the trailer of his upcoming film Nishanchi that truly felt like Kashyap is back on his A game. The film looks absolutely bad crazy and is reminiscent of Kashyap's humor associated with the most morbid themes. I hope this movie, out of all of his films, doesn't go through the ringer of being stuck with problems with the CBFC and we get to see Kashyap's film as unadulterated as he originally intended. Madrasi. A.R. Murgudas is in the news for rather controversial topics right now as he is giving interviews talking about the failure of Sikandar and how he has associated many of its problems to Salman Khan's work ethic and the changes that were demanded of him. And while I will dive deep on this in another video, everyone speaks about the director as having lost his mojo in the last few years. However, there seems to be hope with his upcoming project Madrasi starring Sivakarthikeyan and Vidyut Jamwal. The faith mainly comes from the compelling teaser of the film, making people wonder that this may be the product Murgudas produces when given full creative reign. However, I think only the quality of the film will give us a final verdict on where the director stands in terms of relevance and whether his stories can be as hard-hitting as they were in the mid-2000s. Romeo. This is a movie that I simply root for because of the creative people associated with the project. I've always loved when Shahid Kapoor collaborates with Vishal Bhardwaj, with Kameene, Haider, and even an unpopular film like Rangoon. It is almost always guaranteed that they are venturing into something interesting and something that will not be like a run-of-the-mill story. The movie has crazy additions to the cast. We have Tripti Dimri, Tamanna Bhatia, and Avinash Tiwari, making me really wonder what this film is bloody about. Needless to say, I am excited. Thama. The teaser of this much-awaited film just dropped yesterday and I must say it mostly packs the punch of being the entertaining horror comedy that people will tune in for on the big screen. I really like the retro cyberpunk vibes that the movie was going for aesthetically and I think the case of creating a vampire origin story will be interesting to watch. I assume from what I have seen in the teaser is that Rashmika is a vampire who falls in love with a human played by Ayushman. In their rendezvous across jungles, Ayushman gets attacked, dies, and of course the only form of revival is for him to become a vampire and Rashmika does the needful. He gets introduced as one of their own and Nawazuddin Siddiqui, who seems to be a representative of the Volturi like in Twilight, feels disturbed by the entrant of this outsider, I presume. The conflict essentially will be the film, but I'm really curious on how they dive deep on the lore because I hope it's not just a generic attempt at exploring the themes of vampires. Jolly LLB 3. This is a movie that I'm really looking forward to for it features comedic actors that I dearly love. To see Akshay, Kumar, Arshad, Warsi and Saurabh Shukla have a battle of wits in the courtroom is something that I am genuinely hyped for. We are in an era of franchises and sequels and a lot of fatigue setting in because most of them seem forced, but this is one installment of a franchise that I just don't mind. I think we also need a genuine laugh that doesn't depend on crass elements to extract chuckles in theatres, so I'm really looking forward to this one. The teaser really provided us a glimpse of the mad ride this may possibly become. KAANTHA. Dulquer Salmaan is truly making some really hard-hitting creative choices as an actor. With Lucky Bhaskar just behind him, I was so mesmerized by the teaser of KAANTHA. The movie, directed by Silvamani Silvaraj, is set in the 1950s and focuses on the film industry and the dynamic between two creatives, a director and a movie star he helped establish. The film from the teaser looks absolutely exceptional from a production standpoint, but what interests me even further is the dynamic between the two principal characters that the film aims to explore, of egos and creative tussles that are at the cost of massive production. actions. It will be very interesting to see this dynamic as the two characters push each other to the edge, piquing my curiosity also to where this film ventures from a genre perspective. They call him OG. This is a movie that has a lot of Telugu fans excited for. They recognize the potential that Sujeeth has, especially in what he delivered with a movie like Run Raja Run, but especially on what they could see he was capable of in a movie like Saho. The scale and action set pieces was something truly captivating. Even though the screenplay may have faltered in the process of becoming too complicated, the film will focus on the warring gangs in the streets of Mumbai during the 70s and the influence of the OG gangster returning after a hiatus. Who he gets in conflict with and for what reason results in a straight up war will be the premise of this much anticipated film that has me terribly excited. I can't wait to tell you more when the trailer drops. KANTARA Chapter 1. Everyone was interested to know Rishab's next project after KANTARA. Not so surprisingly, he's exploring the folklore of KANTARA to even more depth with his next project. A prequel to the film which was massively celebrated. The first look of the film generated several questions within me. Will we explore the prologue of the film where he could not find peace and embarked upon a journey to get guidance from Panjuli? Would this be the case of exploring Shiva's father's life before his disappearance? Or are we solely focusing on the Kadamba dynasty? I have so many questions, but when I saw the sheer investment that is going down in the making of video with Rishab Shetty, I know he is leaving no stone unturned with this movie. With the new look of Gulshan Devaiya also dropping, I feel like there is an attention to detail with this project that will truly blow us away when this releases on the big screen. I just hope the scale does not overpower the storytelling. Dhurandhar. If this movie fails, then I honestly give up. If this movie turns out to be a bummer, it will be the craziest gaslighting situation known to mankind. I root for the comeback of Ranveer Singh. I root for Aditya Dhar to have a blockbuster so that he can make his dream projects a reality in the future. I am so stoked to see Akshay Khanna be his devilish best, and I want this to be a reminder for production companies investing in the spyverse to know that action can be grounded and effective while still featuring stars. This better work. But what scares me is that they are still shooting this film and a catastrophe has just happened on the sets. I hope it releases before the end of the year because that also seems doubtful now. And it makes me wonder, am I missing out on some movie? Oh yes. How could I forget?